Yeah.
Okay.
Marianne, we're so glad you're here because I
glad-
just sang your praises about your
you're the
service
birdie.
last week. And
Thank you very much.
so we hope you'll consider doing another one at a future date.
My pleasure.
Are we getting
Okay.
started?
Let's get started. Let's do the blessing and then Minya is going to lead us today. So together, Baruch atah
Adonai,
Elohim
Elohim,
melech
Olam,
asher kishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu b'mazot divrei Torah. Blessed
Torah,
are you, Adonai our God, ruler of the world,
universe.
that sanctified us with your commandments, commanded us to engage in the word of Torah. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, Minya, she's all yours.
I just want to bring up something that was in the paper today
Oh.
that very should be, in my opinion, very important to all of us. And that is that 3 countries in the world have shown their support that there should be a Palestinian state instead of
Yeah.
leaving things the way they are. It's Norway, Ireland, and Spain.
Mhm.
So if you see anything else in the news about that, really pay attention because I think it's going to make a big difference in where and how Israel is addressed in the rest of the world.
I understand also too that Israel recalled all their ambassadors from the
From
their
those 3 countries.
yeah, from those 3 countries.
Why?
Were they saying they wanted that Palestinian state instead of Israel? Or with
No.
Israel?
They
It's
didn't say
wanted
that.
to
They
be-
In
just
addition.
recognizing Palestinians as the Palestine as a state.
Two
As
state
opposed to the
system.
2-state
Right, right.
of
not as
Israel
opposed to
having a
the-
2-state.
2 states, not a.
They want a separate Palestinian state. They didn't say where, but
It would be better if they were moved away.
Yeah,
Nobody wants them.
I would say which
no,
country
that's
stood up,
true.
which country stood up to take them? Which
Nobody.
Arab country?
you know, on the news this morning, on one of the morning shows, they had H.R. McMaster, who was Trump's Secretary of Defense, or he was an advisor that, and he was talking about this, and he said that because of the helicopter crash in Iran and the death of the foreign minister and the president, that he expects the situation to get worse before it gets better.
They're
Right.
blaming
And
Israel for
They
that.
say it was they do feel that this was a total accident, that Israel, because I've also seen things of, the certain people saying, well, it was Israel planted this and they just did it. No, they're saying this was truly an accident, unfortunate. And I think we need to start paying more attention to what's going on. And I don't know, maybe this news will make more temple members want to come to the rabbi's class next month, where he can go into all of this in detail.
Mhm.
Okay, well, that's my opening, which has nothing to do with our Torah portion.
No,
But it's important.
it is
It-
important,
right.
very,
That's why-
very important, yes.
That's why I brought it up. Okay, our parsha for today is Bihar Behu Kote. The thing that's interesting about this is that there are 2 Torah portions. And the reason, because usually there's one, is that these 2, even they're considered as one. And I'm going to be looking at page 150 if anybody wants to look.
Okay.
One of 7 designated Torah portions that, depending on the number of Shabbat in a year, is either read as 2 separate portions or combined to assure the reading of the entire Torah. So the first one, Behar, presents laws regulating the sabbatical year and the Jubilee year. People are told that for 6 years they are to sow their fields and prune their vineyards, but during the 7th year, the land is to be given a complete rest, a Shabbat, so to speak. The other
Back
one
to the land. Yeah.
is filled with God's promises to people to the people that they are loyal and faithfully follow all the commandments, and with God's warning, if they disobey. Peace, security, and abundant crops are promised if they are faithful. Misery, suffering, and ruin will come if they spurn God's commandments. This portion also includes brief discussions of the payment of vows and gifts made to the sanctuary. But we're going to change that a little bit and talk about our topic, which is, I'll get there, the mitzvah of caring for the poor. So what I'd like to do is, I hope more people than usual would read today so that we can break it down into different groups. And then after a person reads, then we can just talk about what we thought of that particular portion.
Okay.
So we start on page 155, the mitzvah of caring for the poor. I'll just do this one. According to Rabbi Asi, who lived and taught during the 3rd century CE in Babylonia, the mitzvah of tzedakah, or caring for those in need, is more important than all the other commandments put together. So that's kind of my first question. Do you agree with what he said, or do you think that tzedakah is in a category by itself?
Wow.
Or do you agree that tzedakah is more important than anything else? You have a choice.
Steve has his hand up.
My comment is, I think they're both important, but I don't think that one is more important than the other. I think they're both important.
So what is the other category of importance?
Well, it would be
All the other
mitzvahs-
tzedakah.
Oh, the other?
Yeah,
Oh, that's not a category.
No.
No, it's
no,
just
but
everything.
Everything.
exactly.
Pam?
I would just say ditto as Steve. I was the same thing. I don't think it's more important. I think that's. I
As
wouldn't-
important,
Hmm?
as important.
Yeah.
And,
No.
and then you have to enumerate what your other choices are, so to speak.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's the idea of other mitzvah that you can do besides just having tzedakah. And that to me would be like the two choices.
no,
Mary?
it says
I
more
would-
important than all the other commandments. That's a different story than all the other mitzvahs that you can do.
Actually, mitzvot and commandment is the same thing.
Same
Are
thing.
they? Are they the
Yes.
same?
Yes, yes.
Yes,
Okay, then-
so
all right, so I'm sorry. Okay.
No,
it's
that's
okay. In reading this, I think that it got me thinking that if we don't take care of the poor, it shows the kind of people we are. I think that God was looking at that as a bellwether for whether we were good people and we were more apt to follow the rest of the commandments. If you are diligent in caring for other people and not only the poor, but the unable and people who are not having a hard time in life, then you're more apt to be someone who will follow the other commandments. And I think that's why this is written the way it is.
Okay,
That's
thank you.
my thought.
All of us have talked about the fact that Harvey Fields wrote this book for young adults.
right.
So my question is, do you think that he had this or found this, because it says it's from, I don't know what Baba Batra is or what book that is, but did he find this particular statement, this paragraph, to remind young people that they should be out there providing the mitzvah of caring for the poor? That maybe it wasn't something they ordinarily would be thinking about, but seeing it here as how important this is supposed to be, they would have a different attitude about it. Steve?
Okay, being a B'nai Mitzvah child or person, it gives them an idea for maybe their speech during their performance or ceremony. Therefore, it kind of gives them the importance of caring for the poor, because not necessarily do they do that.
Right, that's a good point, because sometimes they do a project.
Yes,
Maybe the
Exactly.
project is something that would have to do
exactly.
caring for the people who are less
Mhm.
fortunate than they are.
Usually does,
Right.
or for the earth, one or the other.
Marcia, did you change your
Yeah.
mind?
I know there are kids who, who was it, Stobanovsky, I just probably pronounced it wrong. Her kids were involved with working with animals.
Mhm.
Uh, I don't think it was his project, but my son wound up working, reading in nursing homes to the residents of the nursing home. So there are many things that kids wind up doing, as part of this. With how they just fall into it because it's something they want to do. But yeah, it might be that he was doing it because of that. But there's so many things that are commandments that are so important that even though this is important, I don't think it's super important over so many of the other commandments,
All right, let's continue and find out what else I
Okay.
have to say. Mary Ann, would you read?
Me?
Yes.
Sure. I don't, where
What are
were
the
we?
origins of such an
What are
obstacle?
the origins? Lower.
Okay,
Bottom right,
bottom right.
One
L'chaim,
second
I'm
paragraph,
155 lower right.
second
155.
paragraph.
Okay, according to Rabbi,
Nope, the next one.
okay.
Saw that.
What
Yeah.
are the origins of such an observation? Where do we find the basis in the Torah for a Sissy's conclusion about Jewish ethics? The answer may be found in the Parsha Behar, just after the discussion of the sabbatical and jubilee years. The Torah deals with the question of how the poor and needy are to be protected and cared for by the community. 4 times the words Vechi Yamuch Achicha, and if your brother or sister should be reduced to poverty, begin an explanation of how the poor should be treated. Several examples are offered. The Israelites are told that when a kinsman must sell his property, and another should raise funds for its repurchase. If a kinsman falls into debt, it is forbidden to charge interest on any money or food given to him. If his situation of poverty continues and becoming enslaved is his only solution, he is to be treated as a hired laborer, not a slave. If a poor Israelite is purchased by a resident alien, a non-Israelite, it is the obligation of his family to raise funds for his release. If he was fortunate and prospers while enslaved, he may purchase his own release. These regulations concerning the treatment of the impoverished evolved into important discussions among Jewish commentators throughout the obligations of the tzedakah. Through the centuries, ethical standards dealing with care for the needy emerged into a unique pattern of Jewish social responsibility.
Okay, does anyone have a comment as to whether what it says in this paragraph is for modern times also? Or do you think it refers mostly to back in the thousands of years ago? Nan?
I think it's very relevant today. I think we need to think about all people, and there are so many needs of so many people worldwide. We can't do it all, but if we each do a small part, it then builds and can help many. I mean, I was raised doing volunteer work. My parents, especially my mother, because until I was in high school, she didn't work outside the home, but she volunteered at the PTA. She helped with the elections at the school, and
Like my
Girl
mom.
Scouts and whatever. And so I was raised doing that, and that's how I raised my girls, that it was important. And
I
I
was
think it's
raised the same way.
I think it's become more important. And for my mother's family, it started with her parents, her mother and brothers and sisters. They had formed a group and they went to Ellis Island to greet the Jewish immigrants coming and helping them get settled, whether it was in the Lower East Side or whatever. And so my family, at least on my mother's side, has a huge history of it. And this is why I give to the synagogue, I give to certain organizations, and I just believe it's the important for the survival of us as a people, whether we live in the United States or whether we live in Israel.
Thank you. I think that the idea of doing all of that, which apparently was carried on by you, is a sign of what a community and what a world is really like. You can tell what a country is like by how they treat their people too. Evelyn?
I agree with Nan, but go back and think a couple of thousand years ago, the population was less. The problem concerned fewer people, and so an individual or a few individuals would possibly be able to take care of a problem. Today, our population is so vast and the needs are so complex that I think it is better when we have organizations, in other words, contribute to an organization, let's say Jewish Family Services, that will take care of many of the problems that the Jews have in this particular community. By contributing to the one organization, they are better able to determine and funnel the needs of those people far better than we as individuals. We may be aware of one or two people that have needs, but I think it is better as a larger community effort. And so, yes, it is important that as an individual to do what you can in your own small way. But when you think of the larger community, I think it is better for us to contribute to a larger organization that will take care of the needs of the larger population as such.
Thank you. I don't know who was next. Steve?
Richard.
Richard was first.
Hey,
Richard,
Richard.
you're muted. You have to unmute, Richard.
Unmute.
There you go.
I agree with Evelyn, but let's extend it as personal individuals. We can give money. That's true. Or we can also give money, or we can also help. I mean, like helping at the temple, for instance. Or I joke that we're the Jewish male mafia that we help on the first Saturday, the first Friday of the month. But there's other things too. Even in our old age here, like I work for Helping Hands, delivering people away, and I'm sure some of you maybe work for Goodwill. So there's a lot of things that we can do as an individual basis, not just as giving something to a large organization.
Well, I had intimated that it would be both.
Both.
Oh,
Steve?
Okay, I agree with Richard. Giving of your time is just as important to me anyway, as opposed to a monetary donation. Things can't go as they should without volunteers and doing things for an organization. At least that's how I was brought up. And
Right.
I carry it through, and my daughter's doing the same thing. So, and like Nan said, it kind of carries on through tradition and, lifestyle that we live. It's part of our life. It's part within me. It's within my soul. Go ahead.
Who's next? Marcia?
I think though, if you read the paragraph that Marianne just read, it specifically is talking about your kinsmen. And I
Mhm.
think that's important to look at. I mean, that it's basically saying that you have to be there for family and you have to be there to, under any circumstance, you are the backing up your family members if they're in trouble. You don't ask for interest on a loan. You don't even hesitate to give them a job if they need a job. You do this with, with full heart. And it goes without saying that extends to your community. I'm not saying it doesn't, but I think it's real because it's happened in my family most recently. And I remember talking to my family member and saying, well, you're going to be there for them, aren't you? Because it's just an expectation that we all should have to be there for
Mhm.
our families when whenever they need anything, whether it's our time, our
Absolutely.
effort, or our financial help. And but you know the that's really important. We can't save the world on our own. We can make little inroads, but we can be there for people that are close to us, and I think that's important to say.
Thank you. Marianne?
What I wanted to say was that if you want to look at it as the most important commandment, the way to do it is to say that that's the one that makes community. If we take care of each other, then we will stay together and we will continue being Jewish. If nobody volunteered at our synagogue, there wouldn't be a synagogue. We wouldn't run. It wouldn't be there, because we depend on volunteers. I don't know for what percentage, but for a good percentage of what we do. And taking care of your own is the most important, because once you do that, they can take care of others. And it's just like like love, it spreads. If I care for you, then you may care for someone else. And it's like contagious. And it may, you never know when your small act is going to make it a better world for someone else.
Well, I like your phrase. I wrote it down about doing this kind of stuff helps to create a community, which I think is a very important part of why we're even discussing it. Okay, would someone like to read from, for example? Everybody's going to read
Yeah, okay,
later.
I'll read. Is this starting with these regulations?
No, for
For
example,
For
example,
example,
discussing.
for example, in discussing the meaning of the words, and if your brother should be reduced to poverty, the rabbis emphasize that helping those who have lost their property, who are without food, shelter, or clothing, or who are sick, infirm, or helpless, not only benefits the needy, but also brings happiness to the generous. Those who do tzedakah, says Abba ben Jeremiah, in the name of Rabbi Meyer, have the knowledge that their good inclination is ruling over their evil inclination. Rabbi E.C. claims that those who give even a peruta or a small amount feel fulfilled. Several of the rabbis claim that the Torah's comment, and if your brother should be reduced to poverty, has to do with the obligation of rescuing those who are held by pirates or oppressors. Rabbi Huna argues that it refers to the mitzvah of visiting the sick, and even estimates that 1/60th of a person's illness is cured by such visits.
I
Rabbi,
was really curious as to where they came up with 160. Couldn't imagine what that was supposed to be, but how many of us know people who have been affected by pirates or oppressors? Richard, you've met pirates?
You have to unmute.
Well, yeah, well, my mother used to call me Big Chief Pin in the Neck as a kid. I thought I was for years. But this goes back to the mitzvah, which I think is very important, that says treat your neighbor as
Neighbor.
you would treat yourself. And I think this is coming from that rather than the other way around. I think we earlier on we did that mitzvah. I mean, we did that section in Leviticus 18, I think,
Yeah.
And several people, including Maimonides, I think, said that was the most important
That was
element.
Hillel.
Someone brought it and did it in a negative way to make it even stronger.
That was Hillel.
Yeah, Hillel.
Steve?
Before we continue, first of all, I want to welcome Helena.
I was
You're
just
brand
gonna-
new to us. And the rabbi's is on vacation, so that's why we're being facilitated by others within the group. We're on, I don't know if you have the copy of the parasha or not.
No,
You do not?
No.
Okay. I'm gonna need your email address so I can continually
all right.
forward you the portions for the following weeks. But welcome, welcome, welcome. We're on, well, we're talking about tzedakah and how important it is, so we will
Thank you.
continue. Okay, sorry for the interruption.
No, that's fine. I was gonna say hello when we stopped talking. Who would like to read next? Nan.
Okay.
Zuka,
Rabbi Yohanan says that the Torah means to instruct us to carry out the commandment to bury the poor with dignity and honor. In another interpretation of reaching out to those who have fallen into poverty, Rabbi Jonah suggests that the Torah is particularly concerned about the feelings of the needy. They should not be embarrassed about their plight. By way of example, he tells about a person who has lost his money and was ashamed to ask for help. I went to him, said Rabbi Jonah, and told him I had news that he had inherited a fortune from a distant relative living far away. Then I offered him help, telling him that he could repay me when the inheritance was delivered. After giving him the gift, I assured him that it was not necessary for him to repay me. In that way, I reduced his humiliation. Other rabbis warn against shaming the poor with embarrassing questions. God, they warn, will punish those who are comfortable and ask the needy. Why don't you go out and find a job, make some money, put your own bread on the table? Or who say, look at those hips, look at those legs, look at that fat body. Such a person can work. Let him do so and take care of himself. Such people, the rabbis observe, will bring evil upon themselves because they do not honor others as images of God.
Okay, I have a question here. We live in an area where we see people pandering on most of the freeways and highways where we travel. Do you think that this paragraph or the one before it really gives you an answer as to how those people should be treated? Or what is your opinion when you see someone on the corner, either with a sign or without a sign, just asking for tzedakah? Is that what they're doing? How do you feel when you see that?
I just give them the money.
You do? Okay, so Helena said that's what she would do. Nan?
I have mixed feelings regarding that. I do know that there are some people who do it for legitimate reasons. However, there are people who do it just as a way to get free money and stuff like that. I personally don't give to people like, at a stop sign or at a light or whatever. First of all, one of two reasons. One, because if the light were to change and people start moving, I could be hit or, there could be an accident, there could be some foul play. The other thing is that there are resources for these people. I know some of them prefer being on the street. This is their lifestyle. That's their choice. But I have attempted to buy a meal to someone that I saw on a street corner, whether it's been in my travels to, New York City or Chicago or wherever, or here in the Phoenix area. And I've been turned down. They want the money. And, even though their sign says, well, I'm hungry, and yet, like Helena said, she would just give them the money, because I have friends that say, well, if their choice is to go buy booze and cigarettes, that's their choice and they can do what they want. But I would rather help by either purchasing a meal, say at a fast food restaurant, or if we're near a convenience store, to get them, a sandwich or a cup of coffee or whatever. That's what I would prefer to do.
Mhm. I
Right.
agree.
That's very
And-
interesting, because I think a lot of people do that also. Before, Marianne, I just want to mention something. There is, seems to me that there is like a ring or a group of people who sponsor these younger people on the street, because
Mm,
I've actually
Mhm.
seen them
maybe.
stop a car, someone comes out, someone then goes into that car, and then they're off to another place. And a lot of them are very young people who look like they're only in 17, 18 years old, maybe not. But that's not a legitimate thing, thing for what we're talking about. So if we ignore them, does that mean that we're being an evil person? Or is it just that in this day and age, we figured that they really maybe could be going out and getting a job? Marianne?
Each of us needs to decide the manner of tzedakah that they are going to do. I have, as you have, I've seen stories on the news, and I have seen them, change out, so to speak, people, and that they work as a gang, and they've got more money than we would imagine. Maybe not rich, but they have enough for to live on.
Mm.
And I feel that that money can be better spent, given to the goodwill, or to the people who directly serve the people who need to be served. I violently agree with Nan. And I forgot the rest of what I was going to say.
We'll get back.
Christopher has his hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you.
Good. Go ahead, Chris.
So the original question was, how do we treat such people? And I think as fellow human beings, we should treat them with respect. However, it is true that there are gangs of people who do this for a living. I have even seen, besides people just switching in and out on street corners, I've seen people carrying the exact same sign in different locations around the West Valley. Different people, but it's the exact same sign. It's a very specific
Mhm.
sign. And so I always kind of wonder, when I first came to Arizona, I made the mistake of giving money. And typically when I do give money, it's usually to someone who has a small child, because that really pulls on the heartstrings. But I'll be damned, I saw a different person with the exact same child at a different street corner, not a week later, doing the same thing.
I have not seen that one.
So now I'm very hesitant to give money to individuals, but rather to organizations, because I believe at least we have more control over how the money is spent.
How
Richard?
about, can I say something?
Sure, go ahead.
How about how Jesus said, you don't judge, so you won't be judged? Like, speculate, because at this point you are speculating. Do they belong to some gang, or do they give money to somebody else? Or so it's so pretty much you judging the other person, and you speculating because you don't have proof, like in court. You don't have the evidence. What they doing, or do they need money, or they don't need money? So just I want to just say this. But yeah, you're right. I mean, yeah, they might not need money, but at this point, I'm just, the person is standing, I'm giving the money. I'm
Okay.
not gonna speculate or,
So you just made it, you make a quick decision when you're at that corner
yeah, I mean,
rather than judging
yeah,
what's going
it's-
on.
it's-
So you
yeah,
take the judgment away and then make your decision.
yeah, exactly, yeah.
Richard?
Richard?
Well, many of these are professional, little professional organizations of people who beg. They're professional beggars.
Yeah,
And so they're making a living by begging at street
yeah,
corners. And
but
so
they
I look at
work.
this, I look at this as a profession rather than charity.
Yeah, yeah,
You're giving like you're going to a store and buy some bubble gum.
yeah,
You're giving them some money so they could buy some alcohol or drugs.
yeah,
Drugs.
yeah,
Drugs or
Really give
cigarettes.
to these people.
yeah, like,
I
yeah,
have a funny story though. I was in San Francisco a number of years ago, and there was this guy. He was in a wheelchair, begging in a big sign. He can't stand this, and so I was watching. I was at a street corner, and he stopped at a Walgreens, got out of his
mhm,
wheelchair, went in to go to the bathroom, and then he came back out again.
yeah,
I
yeah,
have-
but
That was his
then-
gimmick as a beggar, was to, he was a perfectly able man, but he tried to get money by pretending that he was, incapacitated. And so that's what I think these are. But I think we're really talking about something really different in here.
Mhm.
We're talking about family who has problems. We're talking about the community has problems. And I think all of us handle it in certain different ways. We give money, we give our time, we give our efforts.
yeah, but how about,
So I think that the begging issue is I think a little bit different and more complicated than
yeah,
people who really do need charity who end up a hard time, lose their job, you know. They kind of think, with the rabbi in Springfield, Illinois, where I just came from 2 years ago, he was a relatively new rabbi. He'd been an executive. He became a narcotic addict, alcoholic. He
mhm,
became homeless, and he begged for a while, and then he ended up at a rehab, and finally decided to straighten up. He lost his family, he lost his friends, but yet at 30, he all of a sudden became a mensch, became a big time executive, and eventually became a rabbi.
yeah.
So people change.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, and I want to say just one more thing. Like, if, like you said, if they go and buy drugs or something else, everybody, so you take like away from God, because God judges every person what they do. Like if they, like I want to say, if you see a person who needs help and you help them, you give them money, then God is gonna judge you as you helped the person who needed money. And if they go to the store and they buy alcohol or drugs, then God is gonna judge them how they spent the money that they got.
Okay, so that's a good point.
You
We're going
understand?
back to,
Yeah,
that
very good
we
point.
should not judge and these things that we're actually talking about.
Yeah, so you like don't take away from God, because God is gonna judge everybody for like also I think it says I watched the movie David, about King David,
Mhm.
and prophet Samuel says to King Saul, he says, you just do what God tells you to do. You don't bargain with God, because he said, the prophet Samuel told him to like go and kill those Amalekites. I think how were they called? And then King Saul says, then after I do this, is God gonna be with me again? And Samuel prophet said, you just do what you are told. And I really liked this because, you just do like you follow the commandments, 10 commandments. You do what God tells you to do. And you don't like ask God, oh, then I'm gonna be like forgiven, or, you don't speculate. You just do what God tells you to do.
Donna, and then we'll continue.
Just my daughter about 2 years ago started passing out water to the homeless that were on different street corners close to where she worked. The family bought the water for her. She had been a faithful person at a Starbucks, so she talked to them. And so every morning she would swing by there and she went to work, and they would fill her cooler with ice so that she could keep the water cold all day. And then when she got off work on her way home, she would pass off the water. Occasionally, she would buy some McDonald's hamburgers, particularly if they had them on sale, and pass them out. But money, absolutely not.
So she was really doing a mitzvah,
Yes.
Mhm.
but the way she saw fit, which is wonderful.
Right.
Okay, we need someone to read The Art of Doing Tzedakah. Richard? Except unmute,
You-
unmute.
Sorry.
I always mute so you won't hear me coughing or saying extraneous
Ah.
things. Okay, the art of tzedakah. The greatest charity is to enable the needy to earn a living. Shabbat.
Wait a second.
I think that's really important.
Okay, I was gonna say, does anyone think differently? That's probably
I
why.
know
Okay, go ahead.
on was Maimonides' 8 things, that was the top. Give another person the ability to earn their own money.
Yeah.
Was
Well,
the
that's
highest
on
form of
Yeah.
tzedakah.
Okay, but that's on the next page, so let's finish.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know
Right.
that.
Yeah, we're on page
the art of
56.
tzedakah, not Maimonides.
Okay, I read it, I was,
Page 156.
I apologize.
Who
It's
gives
okay.
charity in secret is greater than Moses. That's what I oftentimes do. I just give it anonymously. I say, I don't want my name in print.
I agree, but why is this?
Not
Wait a
diminish.
minute. Don't go to the next one yet.
Because you're
Why
not,
is this compared to Moses?
you're
Person
not,
charity.
you're not asking for,
One at a time, please.
Thank you,
sorry,
Marcia.
you're not asking for being praised for doing it. You're not asking for people to say, isn't that person wonderful? You're just doing it in the goodness of your heart, and you don't care if it's no, that, because that, I don't know who says it, but it was the greatest form of tzedakah is an anonymous tzedakah. Okay.
Okay.
So many times when even in our own congregation, it bothers me so. I wish most of us could give anonymously and not have to think about who's doing what, it just, I think sometimes people do it sometimes for the honor of it all, which isn't right.
Well, I agree with you, because sometimes the names should not be published, that
Right.
they
Right.
made a donation for whatever. It
Right.
should just be a donation,
Right.
period. Okay, Richard.
A torch is not diminished, though it kindles 1,000,000 candles. A person does not lose by giving to those in need.
Mm.
That's interesting.
Yes, keep going.
Charity knows no race or creed. Oh, that is so true.
Mhm.
If you wish to raise a person from poverty and trouble, do not think that it is enough to stand above and reach a helping hand down to him or her. It is not enough. You must go down to where the person is, down into the mud and filth. Then take hold of him or her with strong hands and pull until both of you rise up into the light.
Mm.
Okay, does anyone have a comment on that?
Tough one.
Okay,
Richard has a comment.
A
Go
quick,
ahead,
quick
Rich.
comment. you know, some of the charities like the Gates Foundation and a lot of other charities, that's what they're doing now. They're going to the base levels. They're not giving money like the government's give to the government. They're going to base levels and say, okay, we taught you how to do this thing. Now you're on your own. Go ahead and do it. You know, we taught you how to make clean water. We taught you how to do agriculture, this kind of thing. You know, we're giving money to like poor people in India, the women, and saying you owe us a little bit after you start your business.
Peace Corps was like
I
that.
just want to tell you a Gates story. I'll make it short. I was interviewing for a job at an elementary school, and the school had no playground, no place for the kids to go, and their next door neighbor to the school was a gasoline station. So when I got home from seeing this, I wrote them a letter figuring Gates Philanthropies is definitely going to help. I wanted a playground. And I got a letter back, and they told me that they only do things outside of the country. Now, this is going back 15, yeah, I'd say 15 years. And that they don't do projects like this in the United States. They only help people outside of the States. And that was the end of my wanting to get a playground.
Why?
Why did I want them to have a
Exactly.
playground?
Why would they have that?
As their philosophy?
Yeah, that makes
No.
no sense.
Well, that particular organization only worked in foreign areas. That's not wrong. It's just that group was dedicated to that.
Specialized.
Yeah,
That
but they
doesn't
could have
mean,
directed me to another group under their umbrella. But
Okay.
no, it was just,
Okay,
Okay.
I want to emphasize that we have one person at a time speak. And Minya's in charge, so go ahead, Minya.
thank you. I need a reader for the 3rd century teacher.
I'll do it again.
Okay, go ahead.
The 3rd century teacher, Azar ben Azar Kapar, who is known as Bar Kapar, maintains that we are duty bound to view a poor person's body as if it were our own. In other words, we are to clothe, feed, and shelter the needy as if they were extensions of our own flesh and blood. Our standard of care for them ought to be what we would wish for ourselves. It should be given with respect for their dignity and concern for their feelings.
Okay, let's stop there for a minute. Bar Kapara, however, that's how he wants his name to be, is saying a lot of things here about our relationship with people who are poorer, let's say, than we are. How do you feel about this? Do you feel that when we clothe, shelter, and feed the needy, it should be an extension of our own flesh and blood? Richard?
Well, this again goes back to Leviticus, the idea of we should treat our brothers or our neighbors as if they were us. And I think that's what this is saying, the mitzvah of treat others as you would treat yourself. This is ours and a very Christian belief also, as we found out, you know, if any of you who went to the seminar about Christ, you'll know about that feeling that we are all brothers. And
Okay.
that extent. Now, should we give the exact clothes that we have? I think that's debatable, but maybe clothe them so that and give them shelter so that it's adequate. They don't have to live in a mansion. But
Thank you. I think the description that you made when you
a
said,
person who's homeless, that's something important.
when you said that you use your own words to describe how we should treat others, rather than how it was written in either the Torah or King James. I thought that was a very easier way to make this particular paragraph clear. So thanks for that. Okay, starting with tzedakah. Anyone?
I guess I'll do it again.
Well, let's see if I can get another person.
Oh, there's Mary Ann.
Go ahead, Mary Ann.
Tzedakah is not a matter only for the rich, nor is it exclusively, sorry to say, nor is it exclusively material help. The poor are also responsible for giving tzedakah. Rabbi Levi explains that if you have nothing to give, offer consolation. Comfort the needy with kind words. Say, my soul goes out to you, even though I have nothing to give. I understand how you feel. These observations by the early rabbis on the Torah statement, and if your brother should be reduced to poverty, define the obligations of charity within Jewish tradition. Building upon them, Moses Maimonides, in his Mishnah Torah, written during the latter part of the 12th century, identifies tzedakah as the most important positive commandment given by God to the Jewish.
Okay, since we started this in the beginning, talking about how important tzedakah is, has your opinion changed as far as it really is the most important positive commandment given by God? Or do you still have doubts?
Marianne?
I think it is because it's like a foundation. It lets us build upon it for all the other commandments. It's the basic treating others as we would treat ourselves. And upon that, you can build the rest of the 613 commandments. And as Hillel said, the rest is commentary. Go read it.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay.
Well,
Evelyn?
oh, all right. Yes, by helping all in the community, you help, as Marianne said, you help build that community. And if you have people who are wretched because of their physical and emotional condition, they are almost outcasts. They're not participating, they're not contributing. And you want everybody within the group, whatever it is, and no matter how small or large it is, you want everyone working cohesively. And people who are in desperate need in one way or another don't have the emotional, physical, mental wherewithal to do that. And so you are building your community more solidly so that each member can contribute in a better fashion to the group. And is it the most important? I don't know whether it's the most important, but I certainly think that it is a basic concept that is very important to the group. If each individual is out for himself and stealing from others or killing each other, you don't have a productive group. You've got chaos, you've got anarchy. And so that group will eventually disintegrate. Whereas if you help each other in whatever fashion you can, in whatever way you consider tzedakah, whether it is physical, emotional, monetary, whatever it is, you are helping everybody to become a more cohesive and cooperative group.
Thank you. Do you feel that the word consolation is something that you could do if you had nothing else to give? So if you couldn't make a monetary donation and you couldn't give them any clothes or offer them a place to live, do you think consolation is comforting enough for the needy?
It depends on the person.
Right.
Miriam, what do you mean it depends on the person?
If it's enough, if the person receiving it feels that it's enough. If the person receiving it is so hardened as to not recognize it as a honest and genuine giving of oneself, then it won't be enough in that person's eyes. It may be enough technically, but they may not feel it's enough.
Thank
Can
you. Elena?
Yeah, yeah, sometimes when I'm driving and I see somebody standing like on the corner begging for money, but I don't have time to stop or there's like green light. I just bless them. I just say, God bless you.
Okay. Anyone else?
Marcia?
Things are different now, I think, on a bigger scale than they were. And there is a lot of people
Mhm.
who are really mentally unwell. You're not going to help those people. They choose to be in the position that they're in, and there's just so much you can do for them.
Mhm.
I worked at the JCC in La Jolla, and I was somehow for a few hours, I was in charge of the building. So who walks in but this homeless Jewish woman who I think in her 40s, and it was a rainy, yucky day in San Diego, which is unusual. And I got her a cup of coffee or hot chocolate or whatever she wanted, and tried to get warm and all that. And we tried to see, there was a nearby congregation that was trying to help the poor and was doing outreach and such. She would have none of it. She just saw that Jewish community center on the building, and she thought, oh, these are Jewish people, I'm Jewish. And she, all she wanted was that cup of coffee and a place to stay, and she walked out of the building. I was heartbroken about it, but there was nothing I could do to help her. She did not want the help. And I think it's on a mass situation in society today. There's just so much you can do to help some people. That's why what Evelyn and Marianne were saying about helping through organizations is really the only way we can go about it as individuals, because to reach out on a singular basis, unless it's in our family or some close friend that we can help, that's a different story, and that we should be doing, definitely. But to do it for the masses, it's like just opening a bin and just throwing all your money in and putting a match in there, because it's not going to help. So I think we can help with a large group of, JFS and things like that, and other organizations, okay, Cancer Society or this or that, whatever it is. Then
But
that's,
what you did was enough for that person, because
yeah,
they didn't want anything else. They
right.
wanted that cup
Was
of
all
coffee.
I could do for her, and I
But that's
realized
what you
it's still in
wanted.
my conscience about her, what I mean?
Yeah.
But
Okay.
there's nothing I could do, and that's true sometimes even of your close friends and family that you try to help. They will not be helped.
Mm.
Yeah.
We're going to continue with agreeing with early rabbis.
I'll do it if you want.
Go ahead, Marcia.
Agreeing with early rabbis, Maimonides encourages generosity and sensitivity to the cries of the needy. He counsels that human beings must learn to listen to one another, to speak to one another with sympathy, and never to insult those whose lives are broken by poverty and sickness. While the people of Israel are to care for one another because they are bound together in a single destiny, the obligation of tzedakah also extends to non-Jews. It is forbidden, writes Maimonides, to let a poor person who asks for help go empty-handed. Furthermore, helping a person who has fallen into trouble is not a matter of whim or sympathy. It is a mitzvah, an obligation, a commandment of God. The word used for charity in Hebrew is tzedakah, from the roots DK, meaning right, just, morally correct. Within Jewish tradition, tzedakah is a matter of doing the right thing. That undoubtedly is why Maimonides emphasizes the law. If a person has no clothing, it is your responsibility to provide clothing. If furnishing for a home are needed, give furniture. If a poor person requires help in affording a marriage celebration for a child, help with the marriage celebration. If the person is hungry, offer food, and do so without delay, without any further begging. In summarizing the attitude of Jewish tradition towards,
Wait a minute. We're going to go to that in a second.
you
How do you feel about the paragraph that Marcia just read? Are there things in there that you feel should be your responsibility, or you're just reading it with us today and don't have an answer to explain all of that. Like if a person has no clothing, it is your responsibility to provide clothing. Furnishings, same thing. You need to give the furniture. If a poor person requires help in affording a marriage celebration, that's no small feat, but that's what Maimonides is saying. Steve?
Okay, I don't think that he is saying it has to be an individual. It can be a group, it can be another organization that you want to help. But it's just not necessarily an individual thing. That's my opinion.
Okay. Richard?
Sure.
Well, I'm not sure I understand why he says we should form a celebration for someone who gets married. I'm not sure he means that we should pay for it. Maybe he means that we should get together and celebrate the individual, because you can just get married very simply in the synagogue, or now in civil ceremonies or religious ceremonies, without having a big to do about it. A number of people do that. And particularly if it's a second marriage, you just have the judge do it, or the rabbi.
You
Right.
can have a potluck wedding just as well as you can have.
I mean, yeah, a
catered, really.
$5,000 wedding, I don't think I
Wow.
want to do that for a poor person or even my friend.
That's not even touching what weddings are these
I
days.
know.
Want to think about it.
Marianne?
I'm not, I'm not sure that the word celebration is speaking to the party. I think it's speaking to having the money to celebrate the union, to make it happen, to make it occur, whether it's a fee at the registrar's office or whatever the holdup is. But the marriage, to celebrate the marriage, is not necessarily a big to do. It can have another smaller meaning. And I got changed
Basically be there for that person.
Right, and that's Richard's.
And good
Potluck.
times. And
Exactly.
Go ahead, Richard.
Marianne, I agree. Probably in those days, when it was written down, to get married, the bride's parents had to give a goat. Something
I
like
think
that.
there also had to
too.
be a minion.
Or they had to be a minion, and a goat. And if they didn't have the money for the goat, then maybe someone could give them a goat or something a little less, maybe a turtle dove.
How about a
like
partridge in a pear tree?
oh, bunny.
Get the 10 people and bring 10 friends to the wedding, so there's a minion.
Exactly.
Anyone else want to comment on the wedding? Marcia?
It's not just poorness, but it's support of your community. I know that even I had gone to a friend's husband's funeral a while back, and I know the widow expressed just she was so amazed that so many people showed up, and that support meant a lot to her. It wasn't anything monetary, but it was support for her in a time of her need, whether it wasn't anything poor or anything poor or not poor. It was a matter of support. And I think that's what this should all go around, aside from the poverty. It's supporting your community members, as best you can,
By actually being there.
by being there.
Right.
And also nowadays, this business, where it can go back a few paragraphs, my soul goes out to you. I understand how you feel. Apparently, that's not what you're supposed to say to people, because you don't understand.
You don't understand, right?
Right.
I read
Right.
that and I thought, uh-oh. I mean, but if somebody has cancer or something like that, you don't really know unless you've been through it. And even then, every person's feelings are different.
Different.
But be there for them is, yes, I would say yes.
Okay, the last section is a review of what Maimonides
Yes.
thinks. So Maimonides' 8 levels of tzedakah. Number 1, the highest degree of all is one who supports another reduced to poverty by providing a loan or entering into a partnership or finding work for him so that the poor person can become self-sufficient. Okay, that's the same saying as,
I have a question
wait 1 second.
on that one.
Okay. If you give someone land and doesn't know what to do with it, your greatest mitzvah then would be teaching them how to farm so that they can become self-sufficient. Okay, Marianne.
The Hayas doesn't take into account people who cannot sustain themselves because they're mentally ill, physically disabled, whatever. People who are, to get them, to write them a check so that they can get a job won't work. There are people who just can't sustain themselves.
So what's the answer?
Well, that's why we have the organizations do different.
But maybe you could help them contact one of those organizations if they don't know about it.
Right.
Yes. Or to get there if they don't have a way to go. Yes.
Number 2, below this is giving to another so that the donor does not know the recipient and the recipient does not know the donor. We talked about anonymity before.
Anonymity, yeah.
Number 3, below this is giving to another so that the donor knows the recipient, but the recipient does not know the donor. Below this is giving to another so that the recipient knows the donor, but the donor does not know the recipient. Sounds like I read that twice.
Mhm.
Number 5, below this is giving to the poor without being asked. And number 6, below this is giving to the poor after being asked. And 7, below this is giving to the poor less than is proper, but in a friendly manner. Below this is giving, but in a grudging and unfriendly way. Okay. The single emphasis of all the interpreters of the Torah's words, and if your brother should be reduced to poverty, it is the obligation to offer help. If a person is in debt, you are to lend him money without interest. If it is clothing, food, or shelter that is required, you are to provide it. Commenting on the Torah statement, Rashi notes that it is followed by the words, "You shall strengthen him." These words, Rashi said, mean, don't let the poor fall and become impoverished so that it will be hard for them to recover. Instead, strengthen them the moment their strength and fortune fail. Within the realm of Jewish ethics, charity is to be given immediately, generously, and always in a way that protects the dignity of those in need. Okay, anyone have, Steve?
Okay. Last year, Social Action Committee sponsored a how would you call it? Adopt a family for the holidays. And we were through Jewish Family Children's Services, we were given 5 names, of which 3 of those names were adopted by Temple members. And we didn't know who they were. We had no idea what their situation was, but they asked for specific things, clothing, toiletries, stuff like that, that they needed for themselves and their children. And, this was something that we did without knowing who the individual was. And, it felt good doing this mitzvah through this organization without knowing who the individuals were. And that's just what I think Maimonides was saying here.
Did they know where the
They did not know where the
Items.
items
Were
were
coming
coming
from.
from. It was all blank. Everything was, no names on the packages. We gift wrapped everything, and it was all done anonymously.
very nice? Is it ever thought of doing again?
Oh, yeah, we'll do it again next year.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
With those, the asks, the things that were asked for
Yes.
were, it sounds nasty, but were all these things reasonable?
Yes, most of them were reasonable. One family did ask for a bicycle.
Mhm.
But that was not something that or the actual individual or family that did adopt this family did not purchase that particular item. But some of the smaller items, like Nan, the temple board contributed to this mitzvah. And then we had a nice wrapping party before we took them down to Children's Family Services, and they were just ecstatic with what we brought them. It was just amazing. So
Mary Ann?
I tend to volunteer a lot. I'm not working, so that's what I do. That's my job now. And I find that, well, I used to, up until this year, I volunteered at a school in right around the corner, Thompson Ranch Elementary School. I volunteered there for 11 years. I worked with kids. Aside from making copies and doing, desk work, I also worked one-on-one with kids who had problems reading. And this was second grade. And one student in particular, he came from a home that was Spanish speaking, and he didn't know his alphabet. He just didn't know anything about reading. And I took him, and over the period of a year working together twice a week, I bought, in the end, I bought 3 books of Dick and Jane, the first three books. And I gave him the first one and told him, when you can read the whole book without my help, it belongs to you. And his eyes got giant. And then eventually he earned all the books. But when he got the first book, he said, I've never owned a book before. And nothing makes you feel better. I mean, it made me sad in my heart that was possible, but it makes you receive so much from the people that you help that it's almost an imbalance.
Thanks for sharing that.
Mhm.
I want to thank all of you for helping me with my Torah portion today.
You
And
did great.
thank you.
I wanted
And
to
I'll
say
pass it back to Steve. Your turn, Steve.
Thank you. Chris, do you have any other comments before we conclude? No. Okay. I wanted to again, welcome Helena to our Torah study. I hope you thought it was rather interesting and
Yes.
informative. Stay on Zoom before we close so I can get more information from you. You want to give a little bit background as to where you're from and where you came from and some of your insight?
Well, I came from Poland
Ah, okay.
when just before it was still communism, but then when I came here a few years later, the Berlin Wall fell down, and
Oh my.
yeah, when I was leaving, it was actually my husband came first to United States and as a refugee because we had like domestic war. It was horrible, but yeah, I came here in 87 and then I got divorced.
Oh boy.
Yeah, unfortunately, I had a very bad marriage. I had domestic violence like for 20 years, very bad. And so I had 3 children. I had to struggle I had to raise them. And my husband didn't care about children. Well, actually, he told me once that children are mine. I have to take care of them.
Oof.
I heard that
I
one.
think I studied some psychology. I think I don't want to like put him down, but I think he's like psychopath, you know, like people who have this kind of disorder, like very selfish, like narcissistic. So yeah,
Nice.
and I
Have you joined the temple?
yes, I mean I filled the application, yeah.
Oh, good. Okay, okay.
That's
Welcome.
wonderful.
Welcome.
And yeah, like I said, I studied some psychology. Actually, I have an associate in addiction and substance use disorders. So
Understand some of those problems of some of the people. in-
yes, like
Yes,
that.
yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
psychology. Yeah, and I love Bible. I've read like maybe I don't know how many. I've read lots of books in my life because I was kind of like lonely. My parents were older when I was born.
Mm.
And yeah, and I've read lots of books, but I think the Bible is like the greatest book ever written.
That's what they say.
The best,
The
yes.
greatest
Agree.
story ever told.
Agree.
Yes,
Yes,
yeah,
yes,
it is. So
yes.
I'm
We're
happy.
glad you're joining us and hopefully
Mhm.
find it informative and educational for you. I will send you the information weekly now as far as the portions, and that way you can prepare for what we discuss in the future. There is a volume, 3-volume book that volume books that we
Oh.
use. Is called Torah Commentary
Mhm.
for Our Times. And
Okay.
I'll give you the information about this as well, okay?
Okay.
And you can order it used on Amazon or
Oh,
a number of other places. And it's worthwhile reading, and then you kind of get a different perspective from all these different individuals who commentary. So
Yeah.
I think you'll find it quite interesting, okay?
Yes.
Give her abe.com and thrift, is it Thrift Books?
Thrift books.
Thrift books.
I'm big on thrift books.
Oh,
There's also Better World Books. That's
uh,
very, they're charitable.
Well,
uh-huh.
Abe, I- the reason I always mention Abe is because they have Jewish books.
Okay.
Books, so it's, you know, it's very, you know, directed, you know.
Okay, anyone else have any comments before we conclude? Okay. Let us finish.
You did a wonderful job, Mina.
Yes, Minnie,
Thank
great
you.
job. Well done.
Great job, Mina.
Very, very impressed.
Round of applause.
Thank you.
We can tell that we have the teacher within you.
Once it's there, it never goes away.
Isn't that true?
That's so true. Okay, let's conclude then with the final blessing together. Baruch
Baruch
atah
atah Adonai
Eloheinu
Eloheinu
haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet
Emet
v'chaei notah b'tokeinu.
Elokeinu.
Baruch
Baruch atah Adonai
Notain
Eloheinu
haTorah.
haTorah.
Blessed is Adonai our
our
God,
God,
ruler of the
ruler of the
universe, who has given us the teaching of truth,
Is
implanting within us eternal life. Blessed is Adonai, giver of the Torah. Amen. Okay, next
Amen.
week, I think Marcia, you're
Next week, and it's a
facilitating.
long one. I don't know how we'll get through it, but we'll
Okay.
try.
It's the next page, the following page is called Parent Gimel. Rewards and punishments, the consequences of our choices. And I will send all this out to you guys on Sunday and then send you a reminder as well. Okay?
Thank you, Steve.
Did anybody hear from Cy or Joan Perlis? Is Abe?
He logged in initially, but then left, so I don't know.
He's okay. Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right, everyone, have a great rest of the week.
You
All
too.
right.
Lena, enjoyed it. Good to meet you, and we'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.